Hello everyone and welcome to the first episode of the Nonlinear podcast. The pilot did so well that we thought we'd actually turn this into a real series. The music you're listening to right now has been composed and provided by AJ Churchill, inspired by some of the classic SimCity soundtracks. In this episode, we're going to be chatting about some of the games we've been playing lately, such as the newly released Offworld Trading Company, the slightly older TrainNine. We're going to discuss the differences between Cities in Motion 1 and 2, and apparently you can play Grand Theft Auto on your iPhone now. We're also going to be talking about some games we're not playing, such as Cities XXL, and some games that we're looking forward to, coming out soon this month, Cities Skylines. Joining me again from the pilot episode is Dan and Tristan from sandboxgamesdb.com. Welcome back, guys.
Hello there.
Hello, hi.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Yeah, really good. How's everything with you?
Pretty good, pretty good. I'm really excited about starting up this new podcast. The pilot episode seems to have gotten a good reception.
Yeah, we got great comments. Yeah, that's brilliant.
So we're just going to up the quality and get some more interesting topics. So starting right off the top of the line, we're calling this the Nonlinear podcast because it's about nonlinear games.
Yeah.
Which is in comparison to linear games. Now, you guys running the Sandbox database website, can you explain maybe a bit more about what that dichotomy is?
Yeah, it's where you're not following a set task as prescribed by the game makers, the developers. You are free to do as you please, so you can go and explore the world in whichever way you like, and of course that manifests itself in lots of different ways.
Yeah, I think we're kind of focusing on games where, yeah, at any one point during the game, you've got lots of different options. Yeah.
Right. So, in comparison, a linear game is usually where there's a storyline and you go from room to room and you're basically guided to follow a certain path.
Yeah.
There's a line. Linear, that's where the word comes from, right?
Yeah. You need to do this, and then this happens, and then you need to do this, and then this happens. Ad infinitum, on and on forever.
Take item A to quest giver B.
Exactly. Now, I've been thinking, just before we started this podcast, that I was trying to think about what linear games have come out recently, because I can't think of too many. It seems like the new trend is do whatever you want.
Yeah, it's become very fashionable, hasn't it?
Like, I'm thinking of, what's that game called, where there's the big daddies and little daughters?
Oh yeah,
Bioshock, and then the more recent one, Bioshock Infinite. That's kind of the only big name linear game that I can think of off the top of my head that got a lot of attention.
Yeah, I suppose if you think about first-person shooters tend to be quite linear in that their campaign modes kind of... I mean, there's always exceptions, but Call of Duties and stuff like that,
That's true.
It's level by level, isn't it? You kind of completing a level, moving on.
Yeah.
I guess you don't really call something like Counter-Strike Go.
Yeah.
It doesn't even really fall within linear, non-linear, but it is kind of linear as in you play a game, you play a match, you kill the enemies, and you do it again. There's one path.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, I'm just going to go over here and like make a little camp in the corner while everyone else fights.
Although, wouldn't it be a better game if you could?
That would be fun. Stumble across a guy with like a fireplace and a tent and just, what are you doing here? So moving right into a non-linear game that's come out recently that I've been playing a lot, Offworld Trading Company.
Oh, yes.
It doesn't seem to have gotten as big as a reception as I would have hoped. When I jump into multiplayer, there's not a lot of games running, as far as I can tell. But it sure has exploded on YouTube.
Yeah, it's something that I've been following very closely. Yeah.
It's becoming one of my favorite games. It still needs some balancing. It's still in early access at this point, but I love the combination of real-time strategy, market simulation, plus building and attacking your enemies in sort of roundabout ways, using money as your main resource.
Yeah, it's such a unique concept, isn't it, to have an RTS. If you think about games like StarCraft, classic games like Red Alert and Command and Conquer, like they're always about warfare, and this game is just flips that on its head, and you're sort of battling with economics. It's such an interesting concept.
Yeah, and it really does make me think of games like Command and Conquer. There hasn't been a lot of sort of good real-time strategy games that have come out recently, because StarCraft just dominates the market so
Yeah.
strongly that if you want to go play a well-balanced competitive RTS game, you just go to StarCraft.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it seems to be a genre that's kind of... I wonder if it reached its peak, really, with StarCraft. So games like Offworld Trading Company are kind of maybe they're finding their own niche, which is nice to see.
It's hard to know when a game peaks. It's hard to know when a genre peaks. But yeah, Blizzard sure knows how to really capitalize on a genre. I mean, there's the WoW and there's StarCraft, and they've really dominated those two genres.
Definitely, yeah. So I was watching your videos on it, James, on your multiplayer live streams that you did on YouTube, and I have yet to plunge into it. It's something that I've been putting off, but actually I'm really interested to kind of get some information on that game, because it just looks so awesome. Like, how you so you're obviously really enjoying it at the moment.
Yeah, I've been playing it for the last week in my spare time. I've gone through about a dozen or so games.
And is that always against other human players?
I've done a few against AI. I've done a few against human players. I'm only just starting to get a opening build that leads to success.
Yeah.
There were so many times where I would get stuck at sort of the mid-game where I can't transition to a higher technology. Or I've also tried builds where I start at the higher technology and then got kind of messed over by... the fact I was paying so much for basic resources like food.
Okay, that's interesting. I mean, like, we're sort of used to playing economic games where they're quite open-ended, and you're building and growing your company or your business or your theme park or whatever it is until you've got millions and millions in the bank. Whereas being an RTS, it has a win, like a win condition, and the games tend to it seems they last around 30 minutes each game. Do you ever feel like the game ends too prematurely and actually you just want to sit there and build up your empire, or is it very much focused on winning?
If you're losing, it feels like it ends too early. If you're winning, it feels very satisfying. It's like, oh, okay, I got that one.
Right, yeah. Because that's what I noticed on your video, that like you guys, like, I wanted to see you play a bit more, but he kind of, your colleague that you was playing with, your friend that you was playing with, he just dominated it so much that you ended the game and it was like, oh no, I wanted to see what you was going to do next, sort of thing.
Yeah, well, we were new, so we were still figuring out a lot of the options, in those videos at least.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of areas we didn't explore. Now that I'm better, I can sort of hit all the different areas, so it's more satisfying. It's okay, I got that taken care of, I got that taken care of, I just need to do this, and then the game's over, and it feels like it does tie itself up.
Okay.
In the end, it's still very open-ended, because you can decide whether you want to go iron and steel, or should I focus maybe more on electronics? Do you want to go build the basic stuff, or should I go high-end stuff? And you have those options at the beginning of the game, but as the game unfolds, you have to start reacting. It's like, okay, I went steel, but the steel price has dropped. I need to jump on this other resources that is going up in price, and I need to transition, which makes it interesting, because you do have those options, but you do have some goals that you need to meet, and those goals are still based off of what you want to do. You can decide. It's not like I have to go electronics to win.
Yeah, and obviously, I suppose if you're choosing a specific race at the start of the game, you're kind of choosing like an initial kind of strategy, I suppose, because as you say, like robots don't need oxygen and different kind of traits like that, I suppose, gives you an initial thing to aim for.
Yeah, what I find really interesting about choosing your group, I don't really know what to call them, your specialty starting group.
It reminds me of picking your civ in Civilization and stuff like that. You kind of, each one's got its special benefit, and it gears your early game strategy.
What I really like about this game is that you don't need to choose your group until you've actually seen the map.
Yeah, that's awesome, yeah.
So you can decide once you've seen, like, oh, there's not a lot of resources, it's all spread out, I'm going to go scientific so I can draw directly from them. It's like, oh, there's a lot of carbon, I'm going to go robotic and capitalize on that.
Well, it takes away the luck as well, doesn't it? Because the worst thing you want to do is pick your civ, and then you just end up in a really unlucky sort of setting where you've got nothing that you need. And
that's so painful.
I think luck in games, like I play a lot of board games, and I hate games where they're decided by luck. It ruins it for me. It's all got to be down to your strategy and how well you play the game. So that's a great choice. It seems like with Offworld Trading Company, the developers have really thought about the mechanics. It's a game where the actual game mechanics are just so original, and they're really well thought out. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. It's really well balanced. For those who don't know, the guy who started Mohawk Games, which makes this game, is Sorensen. I forget his last name right now, but he worked on, I believe, Civilization 2 and 3.
Yeah, or was it 4? Civilization 4, I think, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, I'll have to check.
But yeah, he worked on the Civilization games, so he obviously knows how to balance. But the real test of it is actually putting out into the wild and see how people create strategies, how they play the game, and that's how you got to balance it. They're still tweaking it right now.
And would you say that, because obviously it's an early access game on Steam at the moment, would you say at the moment it's still worth investigating, or do you think we should wait and for the final copy to come out? What do you reckon?
The biggest complaint I've seen from people watching these games is that it's just too expensive for what it is right now. I believe it's about $40, at least for me in Canada here. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
A lot of people say it's just not worth it for early access to begin with, and the size of the game. I personally find it's worth it because I'm really enjoying it. I could see 30, 35 would make a lot more people jump on board, which I think, or at least even a bit cheaper for early access. But I can see how Mohawk Games, it's a new company. It's actually a fairly ambitious project despite how simple it appears. So I think they do need to pull in a bit more.
Well, they kind of created a new genre, haven't they? I can't think of any other economic RTS, really.
Yeah. I'm really hoping that it's going to start picking up some momentum later on, but I'm really worried that it's going to fall flat on its face later on, because sometimes if a game doesn't launch well, it just doesn't pick up ever.
Yeah. We'll have to post loads of videos about it.
I suggest anyone who finds this sounding interesting, at least go check out some playthroughs, and if you have a chance, go buy the game and play it, because it's fun. It takes a little while to get good, like StarCraft. You're gonna get your ass whooped for the first few games, but just work on your opening builds and find out what works for you. So speaking of new games that we're playing, you told me that you got TrainNine on my suggestion.
Yes, I did. Yeah, after our last little podcast that we did and we chatted about it, I thought I'd go and give it a try. It's one of those games that I really kind of ummed and ahed about because it was very expensive on Steam. It's probably the most expensive game I've ever bought on Steam. It was £45 over here in Great Britain, which I don't know what that translates to.
A lot.
There's some weird things going on there with the distribution company, and because Japanese games tend to be really expensive already.
Yeah, I did a lot of reading beforehand, and it seemed like it was very kind of, it sounds very popular in Japan, so... And
I believe they just don't want Japanese people buying the game through American Steam to get it for cheaper, so they have to keep the price higher up.
Well, nonetheless, I sort of plunged into it, and I only got it during this week, and actually I've played it a couple of nights this week and absolutely loved it so far.
Oh, yeah?
I'm still getting my head around it. It's very complicated, and as we said in the previous podcast, it does things in a very different way to what you'd expect if you're familiar with games like OpenTTD Transport Tycoon. It's very different, but it is very nice. I really like it. It sort of combines the theme of Transport Tycoon, of transporting stuff around, with the idea of SimCity and building your perfect dream city, and that's what I really liked about it. It combines the two, city building with transportation. It's awesome. I really like it.
Right. How are you finding the timetables?
Yeah, that's quite difficult because on Transport Tycoon, obviously, you've just got a little go-to button and you click and to send them to a station. Whereas on this one, you've got to set the departure time and choose which signals, which direction it takes at signals and junctions and all that sort of stuff. And it is hard to get your head around. But then once you've got it all working and you've spent time on it and you sit back, it's like looking at your sort of idealistic model train set going around your perfect city. It's a really satisfying feeling. So yeah, it's great. I'm definitely be playing more of that. The other thing I like about it is the difficult rating is quite high, which is great. Like it's so easy to kind of find games these days where within a few hours you've kind of mastered it and you're just churning over profit. In this one, I think I've yet to barely make my starting money back yet. So that is really good. It's good to have that challenge. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I have quite a few hours mucking around the game, and I still don't really have a great strategy for clawing that money back that you invest, because you have a lot of it to begin with. So it's like, okay, I'll just build everything I need.
Yeah.
And then infrastructure costs really start
disappear.
Yeah. But with the timetables, it is a lot harder to get your head around to begin with, especially the way they have it kind of set up in the UI.
The interface it isn't amazing. The interface, it does leave a little bit like you do need to do a bit of work to get it to work how you want it to. But I think once you kind of figure out where everything is, it is very powerful, and that's what I like about it. You can really kind of customize things exactly how you want them to be, and that's awesome.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is once you actually know how to use it, it's so powerful. I think of like OpenTTD in contrast. It's easy to get into because, like you said, you can just tell, okay, train go here, and it figures it out. But to get onto the higher levels, you need to sort of do metagaming, working around how the tracks work and like have these other tracks just to create kind of like electronic circuits almost to say, okay, these trains can only go when these trains are here, and you have to work around the game. While in TrainNine, you can be like, okay, this train is getting a little close to this train. I'm just going to have it leave like 2 minutes earlier, and then it'll get ahead of that train and it can bypass this train, and you can really finely tune your system.
Definitely, yeah, to the point of where trains sort of cross over each other like within 1 minute intervals, and it just all sort of runs really smoothly. I mean, you can't have crashes in a train, can you? So it's quite forgiving in that sense. Like you can experiment with it until you get it right. Whereas in obviously OpenTTD, if you've sent it down a route that's got another train on it, you will have a crash.
People will die.
Yes, so it's nice that it kind of lets you play with that timetable like that. That's good.
Well, you don't have a literal crash where two trains collide and explode. If two trains do collide, they just sit there. You might not notice. The whole system backs up.
All grinds to a
and then you have to like manually reset it by picking up all the trains. I wish there was just like a reset button. Go back home.
Yeah, start the day again. Yeah, definitely.
So continuing on with games that we're playing, Tristan, you said you got GTA on your phone?
Yeah, got GTA San Andreas on my mobile, on my iPhone. It's very exciting. It's taken me back to being full scene again, except I can play it on the train, which was always difficult when I had a PS2. But I was just really impressed that they could get the game from a games console down onto my phone, and it all works seamlessly.
That blows my mind a little bit that they can take these games that were like edge of the knife technology at the time. It's like, we can just barely fit this on this, basically what's a computer system, right?
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, now we'll put it on your iPhone.
Yeah, now you can carry it around in your pocket.
How do you find the control system though? Because I always thought GTA, you've got to kind of aim, like when you're shooting people and stuff, you've got to aim and be quite accurate.
The aim's really forgiving. Like right. You just sort of tap shoot, and if you're nearby, it'll shoot the people. But driving's fun, and yeah, it's just such a huge leap, and also so cheap. Like it was £5, which is
San
nothing.
Andreas is a huge world, isn't it? From what I remember,
like it's absolutely massive, and you could spend an entire train journey just driving around and not go everywhere.
How does it look compared to the PC version?
It looks a little, because I mean there have been people have reskinned and modded old versions of GTA.
Yeah.
I think someone mentioned it in one of the comments, and they look beautiful. This is quite blocky, but
then I suppose a smaller screen, it must kind of does it kind of balance itself out? A little
yeah, I don't think it's going to win any design prizes, but that's the price you pay for having such an incredibly massive world to explore.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, comparing it to something like GTA 5, which came out last year, the world is a fairly similar size.
Yeah.
And considering that was PS3 and now PS4, it's sort of mind blowing.
So yeah, one reason I want to talk about GTA is, like you said, there's been a lot of mods for the PC versions of the game, and someone on our comments of the pilot, Cornflakes Yognot, specifically mentioned that GTA has the potential to last for years because of the modability of the game, and it's kind of, I wouldn't say the pinnacle of a sandbox game, because I mean you don't build things, but for a non-crafting, non-building game, it's just literally, here's a city, do what you want, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. And I mean, you've got the option to carry out the missions and go through the game and complete it that way. But if you just want to drive around and shoot people, then you can do that until your heart's content.
Mm-hmm. And with mods, I mean, I don't know all the mods that are out there, but I imagine you can create new stores and things and different items you can buy, right?
Yeah. I think it's people are really beginning to have been getting really into modding and customizing it.
Yeah, I think mods in general for sandbox games is something that's kind of becoming a must-have, especially for PC. If you look at the Elder Scrolls games, they've been packaging construction sets since Morrowind, with the game, and as a result, those games are just living on and on and on. Yeah. I remember the Freelancer, which was a great space game years back from Microsoft Studios, that has got a whole new lease of life now. People have made entire Star Wars space simulators out of it, which are awesome because of the modding community. Right. I think it's prevalent.
Yeah, and Steam Workshop is huge. You see so many games now that are compatible with Workshop, and people out there who are willing to make loads of different mods and really improve the quality of the game often. I've been playing a lot of Prison Architect, and they've got loads of fantastic mods.
For Prison Architect?
Even though it's only in
game's not even released yet, is it?
No,
wow.
No. But there's still huge amounts of mods.
Oh yeah, all on the Steam Workshop. There's a lot of cool ones out there that completely change the game. I think there's even some that turns it into a school system instead of a prison. Or something like that.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
I've seen the ones for women's prisons and but a lot of them go beyond just reskinning.
I played RimWorld and I wasn't sure if that was a mod, but actually it's just he used the graphics set.
It's a similar style.
Yeah, they look very similar.
Yeah. I'm trying to see a few other games pop up that look like that too.
So what sort of mods for GTA then beyond performance improvements and graphics? Do we know?
I don't, but I assume there are things where you can.
Maybe that's something to ask the YouTuber Cornflake Yognort. Maybe he could recommend some of the mods that he's played. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, let us know. We'll take a look and talk about them next time. But modding overall, I mean, it can really increase the longevity of a game if the developers give good support for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've given up playing vanilla Minecraft, for example.
That's
being sandbox fans. Minecraft is obviously the game, and we kind of totally it's got to be over a year ago now. We've stopped playing vanilla because we just love the mods so much.
Right. A lot of them are sort of industry based, where you can automate processes where you your furnaces automatically dump into other things, and I've watched some of those videos. I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah.
We love a bit of automation.
Yeah, Tekkit's the big one that we play a lot. Which is
it's beginning to be outdated. I think
it already is.
It's being superseded by other ones, but
it's got things in it like electricity and grinding machines that increase the productivity of your ore, and massive factory complex that you can build. I never know when we're working on these projects what the end result's supposed to be, but we have a lot of fun doing it.
It's just we need more and more.
Yeah, exactly.
Is it supposed to actually be producing anything, or is it just
It's
giving
just
us more stuff.
the art of efficiency.
Yeah.
We do love a bit of efficiency.
It's like a creature just constantly growing itself,
Yeah.
building
Yeah.
itself piece by piece.
Yeah. And I think that's the great thing about it is like it's added a whole lease of life to Minecraft.
Yeah,
for
to a game
us.
that would have probably just stopped playing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I should dabble into some of those mods because I really like that kind of process where you set up a system and then you watch it work and you're like, yes, my creation lives.
If you get bored of doing something in the core game, you find a way to automate it so you don't have to do that bit anymore.
Yeah,
And it's
build
just,
quarries and
Yeah.
don't need to mine. Build automatic crafting tables, don't need to craft, and kind of takes away the point of the game, but you're still having fun for some reason.
no longer Minecraft,
No.
it's Quarrycraft, yeah.
The game Factorio really drives down on that
Yeah.
point. It's specifically about automation, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You build. You're a little man trapped on a planet, and you build a factory, harvesting the resources in order to
Yeah.
get the technologies to fly away.
And you start out having to harvest them yourself, but then you quickly build like electric miners and power plants and all sorts of stuff to mine those materials and then turn them into more and more useful things. Yeah.
Yeah.
I find that style of gameplay really addictive because you're always like, oh, just if I just do this, it'll be that much more efficient and it'll work, and I just can leave it alone. It's like, oh, well, now I'm getting a clog over here. I need to just tweak it a little over there. There's always just
Yeah.
that one more thing you can do to make it work better. And the next thing you know, you've poured like 6 hours down in one session.
It's like efficiency, isn't it? Like we're so addicted to being efficient when we're playing our games, it ends up being more like work than actual gameplay.
Make schedules, plans.
To-do lists.
In contrast, when I was playing Offworld Trading Company with someone, he was mentioning how he would like to maybe automate some of the processes, like, oh, if a price gets above a certain amount, it'll auto-sell. If it gets below a certain amount, it'll auto-purchase. And I was arguing, well, the game's not really built around automation. I mean, something like Factorio or the mods that specifically try to automate things in Minecraft, that's the point of the game. But in something like Offworld Trading Company, the whole point is to have that sort of twitch reflex that you need to be paying attention. It's about personal skill in that moment, not so much about skill in planning ahead.
Actions per minute and all that sort of stuff. I suppose because it's an RTS, if you automated it, the games are only lasting 30 minutes long. If you automated everything in the game, like what are you actually going to be doing, I suppose? Isn't it about efficiency of how quickly you can do stuff rather than like sitting back and watching it all happen, I suppose?
Exactly, yeah. It's supposed to be more involved, more fast-paced. But I think in something like a competitive multiplayer game like that, if you automated processes, they would become a best strategy where you could be like, if you set up these things this way, you need to do it this way
compete.
to be more likely to win because someone will be doing the same thing.
And then everyone does it, and it's no longer like it's standard, and it might as well just be not in the game, if that makes sense. If everyone's doing it,
because I can see from the point of view of someone who's used to an automation or construction game, they want to know where everything is. They want to be set up and everything working. But part of the fun of this game is like, oh crap, I forgot electricity. Because everyone's going to do that.
Yeah.
It's hard to be perfect. It's hard to be on the ball. And when you are on the ball and have everything going, you will win and you feel so much better about it.
Yeah, satisfying. Yeah, I'm going to have to download Offworld Trading Company. I think that's my next purchase. Once I've got bored of A-Train, that's going to be my next purchase and have a play around with it, I think, definitely.
Well, I'm always up for a game if you are.
Yeah, definitely.
Great.
We're on.
I will crush you.
Oh, no. I'm going to need a few weeks to bloody learn to play, aren't I?
Swat up.
Something I wanted to talk about, which could be a touchy topic, is Cities XXL.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always reluctant to use the word disaster.
Or scam.
Yeah, don't want to say anything too libelous, but yeah, it does appear to have been a bit of a horror story for everyone, from everything that I've read. I mean, luckily I've not forked any money out and bought it myself, but from all of the reviews I've read and all of the player feedback, everyone is just saying it is Cities XL, but with an extra X in the title and not a lot else.
It's such a shame because, like, from the screenshots and stuff that I've seen, it looks like a really gorgeous game. I've not played any of them, but they look pretty. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it feels like they've cottoned on to the fact that everyone was a bit miffed when SimCity came out, and it didn't quite meet expectations, and they've tried to capitalise on that, but just by releasing the same game.
For those who aren't aware, Cities XL started, what do I have here, like 2007-ish?
Something like that.
By Monte Cristo. They released the game. It was pretty much online-only play, and it was horribly unbalanced. Basically, the game flopped. And then Focus Home Interactive bought it out, re-released the game, pulled out the multiplayer aspect, which would have been great if it was like, okay, we've just fixed your game. But they re-released it, so you had to purchase it again, and they never fixed a issue with a memory leak in the early games.
Right.
So if you played for more than an hour or two, it would be going at like 2 frames per second on most computers.
Wow.
They re-released the game again. There was Cities XL 2011, Cities XL 2012, Cities XL Platinum. Not as upgrades, but
As
like re-release.
brand new.
Oh, that's a bit, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Platinum was an expansion pack, but yeah, you're paying. I don't know the prices at the time, but you were paying quite a bit for just a slightly upgraded version of the game.
Yeah, not
and
cheap.
Some of the major problems, like some of the little tail ends of the multiplayer, were still sort of there and not really tied up. And I don't think the memory leaks were ever properly fixed. And then they come out with Cities XXL. New title. I mean, it sounds like this would be what, 20? What is? I don't know Roman numerals.
10.
It's another number, right?
It's another 10. A 10 better, or extra large. If you're talking
that's
t-shirts.
what it is. It's not Roman numerals. Extra
I mean,
large. It's even bigger.
Extra large,
It's even bigger. Yeah, if it was Roman numerals, it would get smaller, I think.
Right, yeah.
Let's skip over that.
Anyways.
You take the 10 off the L, don't you?
Yeah. Forget that.
Anyways, yeah, it looks like it's a new title. They said, hey, whole new engine, whole new UI, bunch of new buildings. It looks like a new game. They didn't release any gameplay. They just had the previews and a bunch of descriptions. And it was $30 to $40 on Steam, I think. People bought it, thinking, oh, this might actually work out. Some people even pre-purchased it.
Oof.
But it is literally Cities XL with some more buildings, some different terrains, supposedly some fixes to the engine, but from the demonstrations I've seen, you're still looking at like constantly plummeting frame rates the longer you play, and if you start drawing like really long roads or something. And there's a new UI which doesn't look amazing. I mean, it's not worth the money just for a new UI.
So let me ask then, if you've not played any of the other Cities games, is this a worthy purchase, or is it in itself got problems with it?
If you don't have any Cities XXL game, you might as well buy the most recent version if you're thinking about buying it at all.
Yeah.
It is playable. It can look good. I mean, it's got options to change the lighting. The modeling is fairly well done. So I mean, it's a half decent city game. I personally don't play it because the game feels a little dead to me. I just use that term when I play a game and I don't feel like there's any life. Like everything just feels kind of stale.
I would say if you're looking at spending some money on a Cities game, then wait a month and City Skyline will be out.
City Skylines. I wouldn't tell anyone to pre-purchase anything.
No,
but...
no, definitely don't. Wait for reviews, but hold that money in your bank account, and maybe it'll be a worthy way to spend it. I've seen some good pre-test.
There have been a few previews over at PDXCon. A few people had a chance to play the game, so you should be able to find that on YouTube. And yeah, I mean, the game looks great so far. It looks like they took the best from Cities XL, the best from SimCity. It almost looks like the developers went to the SimCity forums and looked at all the complaints and specifically added those things that people were asking for.
Which is very clever. Well done them.
I mean, the only complaints I see about it so far is that you can't turn off the little faux Twitter bird on top that constantly gives you updates.
Oh yeah, I've seen
And
that. Yeah.
the fact that some people don't want to lay water pipes because there's no real gameplay to it. It's just like, oh, I have some buildings here, I need to put pipes.
I love a bit of pipe laying, personally. That was always my favourite bit from SimCity 4.
Especially early in the morning.
Oh, especially early in the morning. Lay some pipes.
What was I going to say? Oh, yes. Going back to modding.
Yeah.
They are giving some strong support for modding. A big one is, and this is again another SimCity counter. In SimCity, you could not mod to make the game any bigger. The city size was the city size. People were complaining the cities were too small.
Yeah.
I think they were, 2K by 2K?
Yeah, I mean, it's rubbish.
In Cities Skylines, the maps will originally start off as 2K by 2K, but you can buy new plots, another 2 kilometers by 2 kilometers square.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Districts, is that what they're calling them?
Districts is another aspect of the game where you can like paint little districts and name them and tax them separately, which is amazing because that's like having another little city.
Yeah, little suburbs.
So it sort of draws in the regional play from SimCity without sticking it in your face. It's basically optional. And then you can have up to 9 of these 2 kilometer square plots in any configuration. Well, not any configuration, but you can have like either 3 by 3 to make a nice big square city, or you can have sort of a weird shape. Because I think the entire map is, let me think here, about 5 tiles across, maybe 7, I'm not too sure. So you can have a really long city, maybe like 7 by, with a couple other ones sticking out the sides. So if you want to build along a river, you can do that. If you want to make a big square metropolitan area, you can do that. And then they said that's what they support, those 9 tiles. But I think they've basically set it up so if a modder goes in, he can just flick a switch and like, here's all tiles in the entire region. It's probably going to make your computer catch on fire, but you can try it.
But it's nice that they've given you the option.
So you shouldn't see many complaints from people saying, "Oh, it's too small." I think the main complaints are probably like, "Oh, it's not running very well." It's like, well, that's because you have a few thousand agents running around your city doing pathfinding.
Brilliant. Yeah, I'll have to keep.
I'm gonna keep a good beady eye on that one.
Oh yeah, I'm sure I'll be doing a lot of videos on that one.
Oh yeah.
Cool.
So the developers behind City Skyline are the same people that did Cities in Motion and Cities in Motion 2, which I've been playing a bit, which sounds a bit like A-Train, except you're all in a city.
Yeah.
So it was all quite appealing, but I did find the UI a little taxing. I don't know if you've played it.
I've played. Yeah, I loved Cities in Motion. It felt so smooth, alive. Everything was easy to do.
I loved watching the little characters walking around and going to your buses and all that sort of stuff.
And I think the graphics, they're sort of like a fixed angle. I'm not sure if they're 2D or 3D.
I think you could spin the view around, can't you? I think you can.
I don't know about.
I can't remember.
But I really like the graphics. Is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
While in Cities in Motion 2, I found the UI hard to use. Setting up lines was kind of convoluted. The lighting was always really off. I've heard some people say they never had issues with it, but for me on my computer, when it became nighttime in the game, I couldn't see anything. And if it was like sunset and the light was coming from one direction, if I looked at the city from one side, it looked fine. But if I looked at the city from the other side, it was like pitch black. So I don't know if I'm missing some sort of fill lighting setting, but I had so much trouble just even seeing in the game.
Yeah,
I found it. I mean, it sounds like I plumped for the wrong one. I did that classic. I'll get the new one. But yeah, I found issues with City in Motion 2. And wasn't Cities in Motion the original one you played in different cities? Whereas it seems in 2 that's all DLCs. Which, I mean, that's probably just how they make their money.
There was a few starting cities in the original, but I do think they released a lot of extra content, downloadable content, that you could get new buses and.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen plenty of that. It seems like they cottoned onto a good revenue stream there.
Yeah, so again, it's a little bit cheeky.
If I remember correctly, in Cities in Motion 1, you start off with a real city, like Hamburg or something.
Yeah, it's like Berlin, I think.
And it's sort of pre-programmed to grow as if it was actually growing through time, the way it actually grew in real life. And you have to respond to those, oh, there's a whole new residential neighborhood over here. Oh, they're building an airport. And I like that kind of gameplay.
That sounds great.
Cities in Motion 2, I think you start off with a pre-built, made-up city that's sort of set up for decent gameplay. And then any growth is done by you. I mean, if you draw a line out in the middle of nowhere, or if you put roads and then start servicing that area, you'll start seeing some growth on there. So it's a bit more city builder aspect.
Which is very A-Train like that, yeah.
But I personally like Cities in Motion, the first one, far more than the second one. That would be my recommendation if you're jumping into it the first time.
Yeah.
Has it got a multiplayer aspect to it?
Don't believe so.
I don't think so.
That'd have been a good one to have a...
Yeah.
Yeah, have a go on, wouldn't it? Yeah.
I think with the pacing, it's very much a single-player game. I think it would be kind of disconnected to play multiplayer.
You'd be getting in each other's ways.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Nonlinear Podcast. If you have any ideas or suggestions for us, feel free to email us at nonlinearcast@gmail.com. Also, thanks to Dan and Tristan over at sandboxgamesdb.com for being my co-hosts on this episode.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks very much for having us.
Be sure to check out their website for information on tycoon, strategy, sims, and role-playing games. Lastly, huge thanks to AJ Churchill, who composed the music for this episode. You can check out more of his stuff at ajchurchill.com. And of course, don't forget to check out my channel over on YouTube at youtube.com/ZHATT. And I hope you join us again for our next episode. Take care.
Bye.